Oh, hi there. Hey, what up, nerds? This is Lucrebus, and I am making a video today about Albedo. So, I'm starting this series this year, and it's going to be about the different characters in the game, and I'm basically just going to talk about 5 different tips, tricks, or interesting things about these characters that players may not know, that I find interesting. Obviously, these are my opinions. But you're welcome to comment which characters you want me to do next, and I will try to get back to all of you. So let's get right into it. So, starting with Albedo, is that he's not actually human. The first one is his passive talent, Homuncular Nature. Just the name by itself, Homuncular. So there's speculation that he's a homunculus created by his master, which is talked about in his story and his lore. So this kind of helps solidify that he's a homunculus. Second, he's capable of holding festering desire, which apparently no humans are able to hold it, right? Because it has this cursed power that like poisons your soul or something. But he's able to use it because we find that out in Act 1, right? Or Act 2? Act 1. I think it's Act 1. And so that helps solidify that. And then also, just by going through some of his story, you can see that he has no memory of any blood relations, and he basically, from birth, he just remembers going through domains with his master. And his master also shows him, he demonstrates a technique where she creates a huge life form in a culture tank right in front of him, and then tells him this is new birth. So all of that I think is really interesting. Number 2 on our list is there's a tipping point between how much defense percentage you should put on him and how much geo damage bonus you should put on him. For me, I'm using a geo damage bonus cup, but that's because I swapped over and I'm using Defender's Will to kind of make up for some of the defense that I lose by putting this on him rather than putting this piece on him. But when I wasn't wearing this set bonus piece, I actually had basically the same damage. I think I actually had a little more. I think I had 150 more damage on my E ability when I had this cup rather than using the Geo Damage Cup. Part of that is because this has huge crit damage in it, so I got lucky there. So obviously if you do make a defense goblet, make sure you have some decent stats. Otherwise, just remember that at some point, if you graph this out, there's some sort of cross section that where geo bonus will be better than defense percentage, and then at some point defense percentage kind of catches up to geo damage bonus. I think it's more efficient, obviously, to use the geo damage rather than going for defense, but I just happen to get some pieces from the new Cryo dungeon that were pretty good. And if you are going to follow this same kind of thing, like if you're using his E ability and that's it, like me, use a feather and a flower, because Albedo doesn't care about attack and he doesn't care about HP. So these 2 stats are really good for defenders. Obviously, don't put like a defender piece on if you're going to put it in here with defense, because you're not going to get 58.3, right? You're going to hit whatever purple is. I don't even know what purple is, but it's probably like, it's probably 40% or something. So anyway, that works out really well. So my stats right now, just if you want to take a quick peek, I have 2,055 defense, about 1,000 attack, but it doesn't really matter. And then I have 75.4 geo bonus, 52% crit rate, 178% crit damage, and then some energy recharge, which doesn't really matter too much. But obviously, if you wanted to upgrade this, which at some point maybe I will, I would replace 2 of these pieces with an archaic piece of basically the same type of value to get myself to 90% geo damage. But even with this setup, I actually break 10,000 damage on his E ability when my enemies are below 50% HP. Otherwise, I hit about 9,800 or so, or 8,900, depending on the resistance of the enemies. So really a ton of damage. So that's number 2. Number 3 is don't forget about his Q. Even if you're building him for his E, don't forget about his Q, because there's two things that it's useful for. One, you can do some damage when you have your Fatal Blossoms proc. You can do some damage to shields, particularly like brow shields and stuff like that. I know it's not a lot. Obviously, you use like a pyro character, but you still get some sliver of damage on shields, and it's for each proc, right? So if there's like a group of enemies and some of them have shields, it's worth it because in this game, honestly, I think everything is worth it. If you're trying to crank out just a little bit more DPS and he happens to be in your team, use that Q to like break up some of the shields. You know, sometimes you have like one sliver left on like a cryo mage and their shield, and you're like, shit, I don't have a claymore user in my team. I can't hit that character. All my abilities are on cooldown. Just use your Q, especially if you're building him for his E, because using his Q isn't going to be a big DPS jump. So why not use it for some sort of utility? Which brings me to the second part. His Q is good because these Fatal Blossoms actually stagger enemies, which will stop their attack. So if, and obviously this only works, from what I've tested, it seems to only work on smaller enemies. It's like small to medium enemies. I don't think Lava Churls, it works on them. I don't remember exactly, to be honest. But you can stagger enemies, and they tend to pop off, the Fatal Blossoms tend to pop off like a second or two after you use his Q. So you actually get like a second or two to reposition yourself or get a character ready, swap a character or so to do some elemental reactions or something. So I think that's really useful. And number 4 is don't forget about his flower elevator, the Albedo Vader, or whatever people call it. Because when you drop off of it and do a plunging attacks knock down enemies. They don't just stagger, they knock down. So treasure hoarders, hilichurls, even slimes will get thrown and they'll like do little flips in the air and stuff. You knock them back. Excuse me. But you'll knock these enemies back when you use his elevator. So I think that's really interesting and really useful. And obviously it's not like a Zhao thing, you're not really using it for damage, but if you set yourself up right, and you use it to enter a battle, and you use his elevator in that sort of manner, you can actually set yourself up with like really nice positioning. And number 5 is also about his elevator, and this one is all about positioning his flower. So you can actually drop his flower. There's a radius around his body where you can drop his flower, and when you place it, your character will be at the very edge of this AoE that you create, and you can actually drop it up or down. So you can actually drop it down cliffs, which is what I like to do. So if I see enemies below me, I can actually drop it down, and you can actually just sit there because sometimes they can't get to you. If they're melee units, they actually can't get to you, and they'll just be sitting there at the edge of the cliff, and you can just sit there and spam the flower, which is really funny. Obviously, this isn't like a DPS thing, and I know this game is all about cranking out as much DPS as possible. But it's pretty funny, and I think it's a useful thing because you can also put it down below the cliff, jump off the cliff, do a plunging attack, hit the ground, knock down all the enemies, and if you plunge on top of your flower, the flower will then pick you back up, and then you can do another plunge. You can do what I like to call is a Albedo double tap. And I just totally made that up, but it sounds good. So you basically, you put the flower down, you hit them with it, they get mad, do a plunge attack, hit them again, they go flying, the elevator takes you back up, you do another plunging attack, and then you switch to the character of choice, or they're dead by that point because you just did 10,000 damage like twice in a row with your E ability, as well as some plunge damage or something. And yeah, that's pretty much the 5 different things that I think are interesting about Albedo. This concludes the 5 tips, tricks, and interesting things that I find about Albedo. Hey, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments which character I should do next. And don't forget to hit me up on Twitch at twitch.tv/thecrebus. I stream Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and sometimes Saturday, Sunday. Peace out. Catch you all later.